I received an offer as a third round pick, and I told that person I'm not giving him up for a third. I'll give him for a second. Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and today we're going to make a video that I thought we would be making maybe in about 3-4 months, but it's here already. And that's because a week ago, Vaz proposed to me that I should rebuild one of my teams. He gave me all of these ideas and said, hey, let's make a series of this video on your rebuild. And as you know, we do some things with your team, as we make some transactions and trades, let's update people on that. I thought that we would be making some trades maybe like when the season starts, maybe at the earliest in training camp, but you're not going to believe this. I've already made 3 or 4 trades within the last week of making that video. So we are going to recap my rebuild and how it is going. Vaz, you made this proposal to me a week ago. Did you have any ideas that we would make as many deals as we did as quickly, or even one deal as quickly as it's gone?
Yeah, no, I was completely shocked, but you know what? Like, you found the right opportunity. Your league mates, this was the time for them to buy, right? They rated your roster. They wanted to buy. You've got a very competitive league with no team like as a clear front runner. So once one guy bought a piece from your roster, it just seemed like everybody wanted to jump in, and grab their piece too. So in my opinion, it was the perfect time to sell. You had the market all to yourself. It was definitely a seller's market, so it worked out perfectly for you. And that's really important in rebuilding your team, is to find the right time. The timing of trading is so important in Dynasty, and you found the perfect time.
All right, let's throw up my previous roster. So we threw this up on last week's video to show you what my team was before. So this is going to be like a before and after in terms of what my team was before. You can see that I had both Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes as my quarterbacks. My running backs were Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and James Conner. My wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, who I still have, along with Adam Thielen, and now departed Mike Evans. Dalton Schultz was my only really significant tight end. He's gone as well, but I do have some new guys that I'm going to show you. And I basically, going into this, I had my first round pick next year, my first round pick in 26. I did not have a second round pick in 25. I did in 26, and I had 2 third round picks as well. But now that has been bolstered with a ton of picks. So 4 trades that I was able to make in all. Let's break these down one by one. We had talked before. You said in our previous episode that in my rebuild, like, to try to, if you can, try to move like Tyler Lockett or like Adam Thielen or guys like the more difficult guys to trade. And what that will probably do is kind of signal off to the rest of the league that, hey, it looks like Jason's rebuilding because now he has no wide receivers left. It's not the way that it went. Right. I mentioned to a few people that would make sense to go after Christian McCaffrey on my roster, that he's available. And immediately upon mentioning that, I had 2 guys, maybe even 3, immediately making bids on him. And that eventually led to me trading McCaffrey along with Mike Evans and Dalton Schultz. I also had to give up a third round pick in 2026, and I had to give up 38 bidding dollars, or fab, because everyone's got different amounts that they like to kind of show off or put a stamp on for their trade. But with that, giving up McCaffrey, Evans, Schultz, and a third, I was able to receive a 2025 first, a 2025 second, along with a 2026 first and a 2026 second. So with that, I think I'm kind of set for the future in terms of draft capital. Tell me why this was a good move, because you gave it the stamp of approval.
Well, you didn't mention everybody in the trade. You also
Oh,
acquired Brock
yes,
Bowers.
that's right. Brock Bowers, Jeff Wilson, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah. So, um, we had talked before you started about like perhaps grabbing selling Lockett if possible, but you know what? It's really difficult. Nobody wants those pieces. So you start with the big boys, and that's fine. We had a clear idea of what we wanted, what you wanted when you were selling Christian McCaffrey, and we got that. So when you make these types of trades, and you're looking for draft capital, it's very important to assume that capital is going to be a late round pick. Like if you're acquiring a future first, assume it's going to be a late first and value it as such. And I think you did that. I think we had and when you're evaluating these trades or putting together these trades, it's easy. It's easier if you split up the pieces. So like when we're selling Christian McCaffrey, we want to get as close to 3 first round picks as possible. I think 3 firsts is going to be really, really difficult. So you and I had discussed, I think like 2 firsts and 2 seconds would be ideal. And we would do that. We would do that. Christian McCaffrey for 2 firsts and 2 seconds. And then when you take those two pieces from the trade and put them aside, we're left with Brock Bowers essentially for Dalton Schultz and Mike Evans, which in my opinion is a smash home run. Like if you can trade Mike Evans for a future first, we know you're doing that, right? Mike Evans is 31 years old. He's at the back end of his career. If you can reshuffle your team with a future first round pick, is an easy smash. And Brock Bowers was just like the 106, 107 in this last stacked draft class. So that's an above average first round pick. So you had to give up Dalton Schultz to move up essentially in the first round, which is absolutely fine in my opinion. So in my opinion, Christian McCaffrey for 2 firsts and 2 seconds is a smash, and Brock Bowers for Mike Evans and Dalton Schultz is a smash. And then the rest of the trade is just irrelevant. But yeah, so in my opinion, you definitely won this trade, even if all of those picks you mentioned are late round picks. And there's always a chance that they're mid round picks or even like if you're really lucky lottery picks. And that is how you will absolutely smash this trade.
Yeah. Now, I do want to mention because that's what I ended up with. But just for relevance sake, I do want to mention that this same team, they had a lot of picks in this most recent draft. So as an example, they also had Caleb Williams on their roster. They also had Marvin Harrison Jr. On their roster. So this is a team that has a lot of pieces that I would have liked to have had. However, we sort of deliberately, or you could say, we're okay with not going after them because we felt that they were too expensive compared to the draft pieces that we did get, and let's say even Bowers.
Yeah, so like if you're moving Christian McCaffrey and trying to grab Caleb or Marvin Harrison, suddenly you're not getting value anymore. You're paying up to get those guys. You're gonna have to trade Christian McCaffrey plus to grab a Marvin Harrison. So right away, we just threw that option out the window. It's not happening. And then when we looked at his roster, he was stacked at tight end. I think Brock Bowers was like his second tight end.
Yeah, he had Dalton Kincaid as well.
Okay, Dalton Kincaid as well. So throwing Schultz in there gives him a legitimate backup tight end, right?
Yeah.
And that's why that was appealing to him. But we knew Brock Bowers was probably expendable. And then also another factor is when you're rebuilding, tight end is an excellent position to target because they have a long shelf life, even longer than wide receiver, right? So they typically play to like mid-30s if they're good players, which we think Brock Bowers will be, right? So we're getting a 21-year-old, 22-year-old elite tight end prospect with, more than a decade left on his career. So it's an excellent piece to start your rebuild in addition to the future draft capital that you acquired.
Okay. Anything further on that particular trade before we move on to the next one?
I'll just say that for the first trade, in my opinion, it's a home run. It's a smash. So you're 1-for-1.
Okay. And then the next trade came basically 24 hours later. I mentioned that there were at least 3 teams that were bidding on CMC, and I knew that, okay, well, if they didn't get CMC, then obviously those same 2 teams will be interested in Derrick Henry, right? We're getting someone that maybe has almost as much upside and is maybe a couple years older, but at the same time, great landing spot and should absolutely produce this year. I actually wanted to wait until about week 2 or 3 into the season because I think Henry is just going to be so good that I wanted to show him to people to raise his value even more. But when I realized that, well, let's see if I might be able to get that value now anyways, because these guys, then they get to use them for that amount of time. Also, you get them off of my roster in terms of producing points for me if you're trying to rebuild, right? So I think that's kind of smart as well. And lo and behold, I was able to pull this trade off, Derrick Henry, as well as a 25 third for a 25 first, as well as a 26 first. So
No,
two
no, no,
first.
no. You misspoke there. You didn't get two
Oh,
firsts.
sorry. It was a first and a second.
Yeah,
It was a 25 first and a 26 second. So a first and a second for Derrick Henry and a third.
right. So if you can move Derrick Henry for the draft capital that you want, and at this point in the season, it's great to do so because you take out the risk of an injury.
Yeah.
I think that Derrick Henry is a low risk injury, is low risk to sustain an injury. But that being said, why risk it if you don't have to? If you know you want to get, let's say, like a first plus for Derrick Henry and you'd be happy with that, and you're offered that, absolutely take it now because you eliminate that risk, right? So you knew going in, you're not accepting less than a first, and you told everybody that. Now, for you, it was a seller's market. You had a couple teams interested. They had just seen you trade Christian McCaffrey. No, they know that you're capable of moving Derrick Henry at any point. So they're in a rush as well to buy, right? They're competing against each other, which is great for you. So you told these teams, listen, you're not getting him for less than a first. Don't even bother. I believe in his talent. I know he's going to produce this year. So I'm willing to hold. And you know what? They offered you a package that you liked, a first and a second for Henry and a third. And I agree. This is a great buy for you. You're getting, if it's a late round first, perfect. You know, you're getting a first plus and you're moving off of a 31-year-old running back to reshape your team. You're getting, in my opinion, like maximum value. You're not going to be able to get more than that in the season, even if he's producing because of his age. So I love the trade. You eliminate the risk, you eliminate the production. So now you're in line to get a lottery pick. Absolutely get a lottery pick. So I love this move. And for me, you're 2 for 2 at this point.
Okay. The one downside that I do want to mention about this trade, which you pointed out as soon as I made this offer, is I'm giving a third round pick in 25, and then I'm receiving a second round pick in 26. Now, the problem with that is my third round pick, it's a lottery. So, 1 to 6 is a lottery, but, it's a weighted lottery. So there's a good chance that that pick could end up being 301. And this team, after receiving Derrick Henry and having, a lot of very good wide receivers and pieces that he can sell to improve his team in other ways, that pick could become 212. So there's a possibility that, in a worst case scenario, I could end up with the 112 and the 212 while giving up the 301. So I'm only, gaining one spot on that. But at the same time, something to look for when you're making trades is if you're giving up, a third to get a second or a second to get a first, something like that. Make sure that you do look at the difference of that as a rebuilder, that your pick that you're giving up is early and the pick that you're receiving could be late. Because after we kind of realized that, what I did was I immediately sent like 2 or 3 other offers. Like I think I was trying to get Rashee Rice and a first by giving up like a first and a second, like something like that to sort of like because I didn't want to rescind the offer that I had already made. And I think it was okay regardless. But at the same time, I did want to make a few other offers that might seem enticing if he didn't notice that loophole that I think I kind of offered him. And remember, it is a weighted lottery. So, it could still be 306 that I'm giving. And maybe, he doesn't win the championship. So still that becomes, 2-7 or something. So it's not like it's going to be that way, but just in the possibility that something like that can happen, right?
Yeah. So when you had mentioned this to me, I told you, because you're giving up your third, which I dislike, I would have preferred you acquired like a first and then 2/3 from him. So, instead of giving up your third and acquiring a second, getting 2/3 back and keeping your third, I think that would have been a better option. I think he would have done that as well. So yeah, when you're rebuilding, you don't want to sell your picks because they're probably going to be high picks. So that, like, if that's the 301, it's pretty much almost a late second round pick. So you do have to be aware of that when you're rebuilding. Try to hold on to your picks. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So that's the one part of the trade I dislike because as you said, in a worst case scenario, you're giving up the 301 for a 212. So I don't like that, but that is like, a very unlikely scenario. So yeah. In the grand scheme of things, I think it'll work out well for you. And even if it does become worst case scenario, you're still getting a first round pick for Derrick Henry, which I think is absolutely fine.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the next trade. These three trades, including the Derrick Henry trade, this all happened within a span of like 1 hour. It might have been 30 minutes. And as soon as Henry was gone, everyone in the league realized, okay, fire sale is going on. Call Jason because we need to get this guy before somebody else does. And the next guy that went was Aaron Rodgers for a first round pick in 26. And this was huge because 2 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, I received an offer as a third round pick. And I told that person, I'm not giving him up for a third. I'll give him for a second. He did not act on that. And then as we started talking more about this, the price went up and he offered me a second and I turned it down. And that eventually led to me being able to get a first round pick. So understanding the value of the asset that was on sale here was very important because I could have ended up with not just a second round pick, but a late second round pick. But now instead, I'm getting a first round pick. And I think this has a better chance to be a mid first round pick than the second round pick would have been of being like the very last second round pick.
This trade is the reason I go productive struggle. It's when you can turn these pieces that are, like, in my opinion, not very valuable long term into future mid first round picks. Like, this is, in my opinion, an absolute heist. It was a robbery for you. We had discussed, let's try to hold Rodgers for a quarterback injury in season and see if we could miraculously get a first round pick or 2 second round picks. And then out of the blue, somebody who we didn't expect to trade for him, who already has 2 starting quarterbacks on his roster, offered a first round pick for him. It was just an absolute smash trade for you, an absolute heist in my opinion, and I love it. Like, there's nothing negative for me to say. So in my opinion, you're 3 for 3, but it's like a 3+ for 3. You've crushed the rebuild so far.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do?
Like! Subscribe! Subscribe!
Okay, and then let's take a look at our final trade. Once again, 3 trades in the matter of like 30 minutes. And this one was James Conner. I sold to a team for Michael Mayer and a third round pick. And this was actually a surprising offer because this person had been offering me a third, 2/3 for Conner. And he seemed to really want Conner, but this is not one of the top teams. This is a middle team. And I would say that 6 teams make the playoffs. We're in a 12-team Superflex, but I would say 8 teams are legitimate contenders, and this would be like maybe like the 8th team for me. So this could very well be a middling third compared to
or a lottery third.
Yeah, or a lottery third, or same thing with like the Aaron Rodgers team. I think that team's kind of in a similar boat, like it's sort of like in that middle. If I get lucky, then maybe one of these become a lottery rather than
first.
an earlier a third. But anyways, all said and done, Michael Mayer and a third for James Conner. How'd you like the value on that one?
Yeah, 4 for 4. I like this one as well. I think you with this trade, you were able to kind of give yourself like a 2 for 1, of course. And I think that a year from now, both of these pieces will be more valuable than James Conner. And that's what I love the most about it. I think like next offseason, if you want to trade James Conner for a third, you wouldn't be able to, right? They've got the Trey Benson who they drafted. He's going to be the future of that team. It's very, I'd say likely this is James Conner's last season as a starting running back, right? He might even retire after this year. You know, he's getting up there and he's slowing down. And if he doesn't, I think he's a backup next season. So I really love this trade, and acquiring Michael Mayer is a piece I really like grabbing because his value is really low right now because of the addition of Brock Bowers, but he's still a very talented player. And as I said previously, I like grabbing tight ends for your rebuilding team because they have a pretty long shelf life. And I think Michael Mayer is a type of player that his value could very well increase in his second contract in the NFL. I think it's possible that Vegas does not re-sign him because they have a better tight end on the roster. So it's possible that he'll move to another NFL franchise, and inherit a starting job. He could move to a place with more opportunity for targets and more fantasy production. So I really like this addition. And then the fact that you added Brock Bowers previously, even if he weren't to move, if he were to re-sign in Vegas down the road, you've now handcuffed your tight end position. So if you were to suffer an injury there, you have an easy start week to week at tight end. So I really love this trade for your team, exactly for your team. And then, yeah, like getting the 3rd round pick on top just gives you added security in a sense. So I really love this trade. 4 for 4.
Okay, so my question I was going to ask you that you somewhat answered was, did it matter at all that I already had Bowers on my roster? Because, I've got both of these Las Vegas tight ends now on my team. So was that negative or positive in terms of acquiring Mayer to a team that I've already got the starter? So you say that that's better, not worse.
Yeah, I mean, like, either way, even if you didn't have Brock Bowers, I would like this trade. I mean, I'm always willing to trade for talent, and I believe in Michael Mayer's talent, and I think he's undervalued. I think he's way too low in the community's eyes right now for the talent that he is, and he's so young as well, right? So I love the trade, even if you didn't have Brock Bowers, but the fact that you have Brock Bowers on your roster, I like it even more for the reasons I had mentioned previously.
Okay, so this team kept offering a 3rd round pick, then offered me 2 3rd round picks. I said I wanted a 2nd round pick. So here's a question for you. This person did not give me a 2nd round pick, or they would refuse to give me a 2nd round pick, but instead gave me Myers and a 3rd round pick. Would you I keep calling him Mayer. Would you have preferred a 2nd round pick or Mayer and a 3rd?
It's a tough question. I think I definitely would have taken a 2nd without question. I think we had discussed for James Conner, we would take any 2nd, but I like this trade just as much as that. And I think probably even more. I'm high on Mayer. I like Mayer. So I think given the 2 options, I probably would have taken Mayer in a 3rd over just a 2nd.
I feel like I would have too. And I didn't realize that until just now when I was thinking about that, because I was thinking, like, I wonder if I would have preferred, I think I might prefer this over the 2nd that was offered me in the first place. So, because I think Mayer is worth more than a 3rd, maybe not quite a 2nd. He's kind of like that tweener spot that just kind of fits in perfectly. But
talent wise, he is definitely worth a mid-2nd talent wise.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like if you took away last year's season stats, if you take away and just kind of like
not even about last year's season stats, just the addition of Brock Bowers, it's what's plummeted him down in the community's eyes, right?
Yeah, actually very
true. But you don't need his production, right?
Yeah.
You're holding on to the talent. You won't need his production for 3 years. So you're holding on to him, and I think he's a type of talent that will increase in value on his 2nd contract. So for that reason, I really do like adding him.
Okay. Any final words on any of these 4 trades or the future of our rebuild with this team?
You've said go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, and noting that the 2 pieces I think that we still have left to sell would be Tyler Lockett and Adam Thielen. I think, or maybe Tutu Atwell if he does anything in the start of the season. Probably can't trade him right now though.
Yeah, so you've crushed the start of your rebuild. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and so I think, like, good for you. Like, respect, congratulations, you've done well. But at this point now, for the next 2 seasons, you need to focus on one thing and one thing alone, and that's accumulating value. So, it's going to be really difficult to trade Adam Thielen, but like if he ever has like an up week, right away you need to try to sell him for a 3rd round pick. And I'll let the audience know that in this league is a little bit strange. They don't have any 4th round picks, so it's going to be. You guys have only 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks. So it's going to be a little bit harder to sell Lockett and Thielen, but any opportunity you have in season, you need to move them. Like if you see some team suffers an injury and they have buys coming up, you need to talk to them and try to get any kind of draft capital you can, or future draft prospects if possible. And then even like in next season's rookie draft, your priority should be trading back in that draft and accumulating more future picks. Like if there's a competing roster who really wants to trade up and grab a talent in next year's draft class, maybe at running back, which you don't really want to grab at that point, that's a great opportunity to trade back to the 2nd and add a future 1st round pick. So I think in the next draft class, in the next year's rookie draft, you need to be mindful of the fact that you want to trade back also. I think for the next 2 years, just focus on accumulating value. You don't want to win for the next 2 years. You just want to accumulate value. And then you do have one piece in your roster you did not mention. I think it's very important to mention him, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
That's right. Who?
Yeah. I think you have to be open to moving Patrick Mahomes because if you can get the value you want for him, I think you should be open to moving him. That being said, because he's the best player in the NFL and he will be for the next decade, you know that his value will hold firm. It will be stable. So you don't have to be in a rush to trade him. But in season, if somebody suffers an injury, if a competing roster suffers an injury, it might be a great idea to message them and see if you can get just an absolute boatload of picks for him and prospects as well.
Yeah, one of the teams that I was eyeing actually has Lamar Jackson and still has 2 first-round picks remaining over the next 2 years because we only have picks for 2 years. But I was thinking, okay, so that would be a good target. So if Lamar were to get injured at any point during the season, early to mid, Patrick Mahomes for Lamar and 2 first-round picks. Is that a slam dunk?
Yeah, that's a slam dunk. 2 firsts, including Lamar. That's a slam dunk.
What about a first and a second?
I'm not sure. Lamar's not really the guy I want to target in your shoes. I don't think he ages as well as Patrick Mahomes does. I'd probably targeting a younger, like a Joe Burrow, somebody's a little bit more stable. Even though I value Lamar more at this stage with his rushing upside, I just think that he won't age as well as Joe Burrow will.
Certainly, if he's coming off of an injury.
Exactly. So I'm not targeting like Lamar. I don't love targeting Lamar Jackson, but I like the idea you're putting out there. Like if a quarterback gets injured, yeah, see if you can move Mahomes for that quarterback and 2 first-round picks on top. If like a top player gets injured, or if like I don't know, like Jordan Love gets injured, maybe you can move Patrick Mahomes for 2 firsts and 2 seconds or something like that, and just accumulate a ton of draft capital, and then move back to a younger quarterback who's immensely talented.
Okay, well, there you have it. That was my team. I'll quickly update. So now my team has 3 first-round picks in 25. I've also got 1 second-round pick in 25 and 1 third-round pick. In 26, I now have 3 first-round picks. I have 3 second-round picks and no thirds. But once again,
you've added Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, which is
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the update on the roster. If we have more action on this team, I will update that in the future. And I've also been hitting the waiver wires to get some no-name, handcuffs that might be able to do something in the offseason. Carson Wentz, as an example, was one of the guys that I grabbed who's backing up Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. So if something were to happen, then I'm protected there as an example. But yeah, we're going to update this as we go. And I do want to also invite, if you want to do a rebuild and are not sure or have questions or have a roster like mine and you're thinking about it and you want some advice, we will answer that for you. And here's how to do it. Join our Facebook group. I've got the link in the descriptions below. If you click on that, go to our Facebook group, ask your question in there, and Vaz and I will break down what the best thing to do is for your rebuild. And just any questions that you might have on anything as well, join our Facebook group, ask questions, and we will respond to you there. Vaz, any final words?
No, just that was a lot of fun last week and great job. And I hope you're happy that you started the rebuild immediately.
I think you were even happier than me with every trade that I was telling you that we got, because
man, I love this process. I love rebuilding fantasy teams. It's just a passion.
It is a lot of fun. So if you want to do it, go ahead and let us be a part of it as well, because Vaz gets really excited being a part of these, let me tell you. Anyways, like our video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time for another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.